Welcome. We appreciate y'all pulling up to the Alphabet Chronicles, where we discussing strategic dominance from Alpha to Omega. This is our leadership series, and we are your host, Dr. Al Quarles, and myself, Seneca Smith. Hey, let's get right into discussing leadership.
Yes, sir.
So, we was talking, and we were speaking about the crab in the bucket mentality. So we really want to talk about that and how the crab in the bucket mentality is seen in different aspects of leadership. So the crab in the bucket mentality has been described as a phrase rather, like, if I can't have it, neither can you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share with us some instances within your experiences with leadership where this concept of if I can't have it, neither can you has actually proven relevant?
Yeah, I think that it's so much bigger than just that, but I think I have a lot of personal experiences, just personal through work, through different endeavors that I've taken on, my business, different situations where I believe that first of all, I think that the crab in the barrel mentality overall is really looked at as, research shows that it comes from low self-esteem. I may be getting ahead of myself, but I think the underlying factor why, some folks may not lift up, because we know the crab in the barrel mentality is talking about, if you had crabs in the barrel, you don't even need a lid on the barrel because we'll just keep pulling each other down.
Right.
You don't even keep pulling each other down versus, pulling each other up, which, many folks do, but I think that, in my experience, low self-esteem and, situations where, as you had mentioned, folks who believe that, if I can't have it, nobody can have it.
Right.
It just plays a factor. It's such a big concept that it's hard to really talk about one instance. I think when we talk about the crabs in the barrel, let me give you an example. So, I'm in many spaces, as I have a company. I've worked in education for just about 30 years.
Right.
I've worked with supervisors and, directors who I'm young and up and coming and progressive. And, behind the scenes, they people, rumors are going on. People start things, instead of, we all can win. We all can eat. It's something right. I say it's, that's, just whether it's conscious or subconscious, just, really making sure that, you cannot succeed. You know what I mean? Making sure that whatever's going on with you, it's not going to hinder me because I'm not feeling good enough about myself, or I'm not feeling, like I'm feeling threatened, for lack of a better term, by your success, by your progress, by what you're doing. And, I think that it's just ingrained. I know that the research is showing that it's culturally driven. It's like a learned behavior in many situations.
So let me ask you that. So let me ask, especially since you say that, because you talked about the self-esteem. What like societal factors? What that's going on right now? We have social media. We have in our generation. For those that's younger than us, you may have never heard this, but for our generation, it's been keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that has exploded into something amazingly crazy. For real.
Absolutely.
Keeping up with the Joneses when I was coming up was a thing. It was a real thing.
Right.
My parents fell victim to that. So what, in your experience, what societal influences, if any, play a role in that crab in the bucket mentality?
Great. It's great. Great question. I think that it's culturally driven. The term crab in the bucket mentality came from a Filipino writer who he was a journalist, a Filipino journalist in 1987, came up with that term in the article he wrote. And it's funny that we're talking about Filipinos because, we're both Black, but I have family who are Filipino. And, very similar to Black culture, African-American culture, Filipino culture. And we can't put everybody into a bucket and say everybody who's from this culture is a certain way. We're smarter than that. But I think deeply ingrained the competitive nature, what we've learned from having a lack of,
right.
What we've learned from, being ostracized, what we've learned from, slavery, what we've learned from, what's this been beat into us. And it's kind of funny that we talk about Filipinos because I've always said that Filipinos remind me of Black Asians. You know what I mean? It's like almost
Absolutely.
Folks want to put us at the bottom of the barrel as African Americans, as Blacks. They want to put Filipinos at the bottom of the barrel as Asians, in my personal humble experience.
Well, if you do the history of Southeast Asia and the travels of African navigators, and if you're familiar with the I want to say it starts with a B. It's a landmass. I can't remember it off the top of my head right now. Yet when this comes back, it'll be somewhere. I'll make a notation for this landmass, and it starts with a B. I have too much information in my head, but it was a landmass that connected Asia to the west coast of the North American continent. So we had plenty of navigators, plenty of us that traveled, plenty that came from the African continent that traveled up Africa through Asia, Western, Eastern Europe, came over. Boom. So in Dr. Ivan Van Sertima's great book, They Came Before Columbus, it speaks on this landmass and our influence over here beforehand. So as we get to Africans in North America, of course, they went through Southeast Asia and they lived, they populated, and so our influence, African influence, is absolutely all throughout that area. So you're right in that assessment. But go ahead, please.
No, I mean that's really, I think a lot of it. I mean, I think when we talk about this mentality, I think some of the signs are, maybe getting ahead of myself, but I just think about some of the things.
Like, what are some of the crab mentality signs?
Right. So I think, immediately offering unwanted criticism or negative feedback, in many situations. I could think of personal situations that, I immediately thought this is the crab in the barrel mentality. Go
ahead, speak on it. You ain't gotta say no name, blow nobody up.
So I remember my brand BuckaFogey Sports. We launched in June 2020. And I remember a fairly prominent, I'm not gonna say any names, a fairly prominent golfer, not on the PGA Tour, but on a uniquely, how can I say this? They were doing something other than just normal PGA Tour stuff, but they're very prominent, and folks know them. I received a inbox on social media saying, "Hey, what is BuckaFogey Sports?" from this person who I looked up to, thought, hey, this is the right person, and a lot of people do, and I responded politically correct. That's why, BuckaFogey Sports is a mindset. BuckaFogey word is a spoonerism. You know what I mean? It's about, tenacious, focus driven. Yeah. Politically correct, but being nice.
Right.
Trying, because I thought they were asking me a serious question. They immediately came back and said, "Oh, I know what it means, but, how do you think as a black man you will ever be in the PGA Superstore? Literally, this is what they said. Now I'm currently in PGA Superstore. They said, how will you ever be accepted by mainstream? How will you ever, literally they wrote me after they asked me a question, they set me up. I answered it humbly. They gave me this long dissertation about how I would never succeed.
Right.
And I'm saying to myself, what? You know what I mean? So what I did was I blocked them. I was frustrated, but I just realized it's just some crap.
You canceled them, but Doc,
I blocked them.
Straight to cancel culture.
I blocked them. I just, I ain't got time for that, man. You know what I mean? I ain't got time for that mentality. You know what I mean? Versus offering, it just came right. They don't know me, first of all.
Right.
So I'm never going to be successful because of the name I chose for my business. When, hey, they don't have a business. And they do have a name. They have.
You said it was a professional golfer, right?
A professional golfer in.
They got a business.
They got a business.
Right.
They got a business.
Right.
They're on a.
Right. And then crabs though, in my experience, a part of what helps to contribute to that crab in the bucket mentality is the desire to fit in. That's in my experience.
Or conform.
Right. Conform and/or fit in. And so, me, myself, being a professional golfer and being a disruptor in the field, I see where those questions come from, because individuals are afraid of change. And so, in that fear, false expectation appearing real, in that fear, that's where that pulling you back down comes from. Like, you might mess it up for the rest of us, or you might have people looking at us sideways.
That's what it was.
I'm not going to mention a golfer's name that I did a tour event. I'm not going to mention the tour. It wasn't a PGA. Yeah, it was a mini tour, and I did an event, and it was a golfer that looked like me. We were the only two golfers there, and I said, "What's up, man? How you doing?" Literally. And mind you, I'm 46 years old. So everybody there is my young boys. You understand what I'm saying? So as an elder statesman, and I understand the competitive nature of any sport, yet I'm also the consummate sportsman. And being an elder statesman, an elder sportsman, I wanted to make sure that I greeted the brother.
Absolutely.
Acknowledged him. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? He a young boy.
Absolutely.
You see?
Absolutely.
And this boy,
it's only right.
He looked at me like I was crazy. He looked at me like I called him the N-word and told him to go F himself, for real. And then he picked up his gear, because we were right next to each other on the practice range. Picked up his gear and got up out of there. He wound up withdrawing eventually from the event. And to me, that's the first thing I thought of was, man, you know what I'm saying? Like, he should have been like, hey, what's up? Dapped it up, boom, boom, boom. But
been there.
I mean, if he was looking to withdraw, not for nothing, he should have stepped to me and was like, hey, you got a caddy? I'm not going to finish the event, but we can work together. I would have cashed him out. We would have won it, and I would have cashed him out. I'm not going to tell you what place I came in, but we would have won it, and I would have cashed him out. For real. Yet, at the end of the day, I believe that the societal influences, right, played a significant role on that. He didn't want them other folks to, I don't know, maybe feel threatened, or I'm not sure. I know.
Or wanted to conform, wanted to fit in.
Right. In my mind, he wanted to conform and fit in, and had him, because looking the way I do and presenting myself in the beautiful fashion in which I do, I'm a fish out of water in certain areas. So that kind, and that young man, he looked the part all day long. So
shirt tucked in, no hair on his face.
Yeah, none of the, he had the schoolboy Barack Obama cut. You know what I mean? His pants was extra tight, pulled up to here. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I had the BuckaFogey gear on Smizzle. He was like, so it's all good. But moving right along, and you know what? I think that's a great segue into my next question that I want to ask you. Do you think that lack of awareness plays a significant factor? Lack of self-awareness, right? Plays a significant factor in that crab in the bucket mentality.
I think a lot of it is subconscious. I don't think in many situations folks do it on purpose.
You think the crab in the bucket mentality is subconscious as opposed to
in many situations, not all situations. I think some people just straight hate me. You know what I mean? But I think in other situations it's just deeply ingrained. Like you just
so you think it's like post-traumatic slave disorder? Are you familiar with that terminology?
Possibly, or just.
And that terminology
culturally not seeing folks culturally really support each other culturally. Mm-hmm. So for example, all right, I worked in homeless education for 20 years.
Right.
I helped thousands and thousands and thousands of children, literally. 8,000 a year. Students in school, provided them supplies, in the city of Philadelphia, which is a melting pot. We had one high school that spoke, I'd say, Northeast High School in Philadelphia spoke about 114 languages, right? So I worked with a lot of different cultures. We almost never had students experiencing homelessness that were Chinese, that were, East Indian or Arab, Jewish Americans, many different cultures. Just automatically, I would see they would support their own. Mm-hmm. They would double up, triple up, quadruple up before they would see their own become homeless.
Okay.
But I saw it different with other cultures. So I think that's one example of where I think that's just what they do. Like, for example, Filipino culture, you're not going to be in somebody's family who's Filipino, regardless of some of the mentality they may have. They'll spend 10 people in the bedroom. They're not going to let you become homeless. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They may hold it over your head and put me here and you're there now, which is very common. You know what I mean? Everybody can't be the queen. Everybody can't be on the same level. I may have something over you now, but you're not going to be homeless. You know what I mean? So a lot of cultures will, I think just, I just think it's intrinsic. I think it's just inside and just what they do. So I think a lot of it is just really culturally driven. And that's what research says. Research shows that it is culturally driven. So our culture, I think, if you go back to, house Negroes.
So hold on. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like, you know what I mean? I wasn't there, but, from what I understand, it's like a pecking order, you know what I mean? What's that movie, Django, with what's his name, Uncle Thomas?
Right.
You know what I mean? So what did he say? Are we sick, boss? Are we sick, boss? You know what I mean? Like that type, he may have been a fictional character, you know what I mean? I think that pieces of that have trickled down in many situations, and a lot of times it's in our most impoverished neighborhoods. You know what I mean? So, I think it just kind of.
So you say that the crab in the bucket mentality, in regards to self-awareness, has a significant connection to the overall cultural disposition of an individual, their family,
and lack of awareness. Miseducation. A lot of what we learn has not been, uplifting. We haven't learned about a lot of, listen, I got my doctorate degree. I had my first Black professor right before I graduated. My first Black male professor right before I graduated with my doctorate degree. Just one example. We weren't taught, coming up, I'm 56 years old. We weren't taught, self-love. We were taught, the normal. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, the struggle, turn the other cheek, and and all great Americans that allowed me to feel good about. But the diversity behind what we learned, the community cultural uplift, the Black Wall Street, the how we come from kings and queens, how we things that I think other cultures are able to feel good about. We really didn't have a lot to emulate, and if our parents or our grandparents or what we saw was not necessarily that uplift, that strong community, that let's look out for each other, that that type mentality, we don't learn that. You know what I mean? I think it's a learned behavior.
Why do you think that is? Because you're 56, I'm 46. So you're at the, and hip hop turned 50 this year. So you were 6.
I grew up with hip hop.
Right. And when you talk about the learning of we are kings and queens, like hip hop really taught that. And it taught it. It probably taught it more so when it was around age 3 or 4. Before it was just more like party stuff, right? But so the prior generation, our parents, grandparents, your parents are a little older than mine. Why do you think that our generation, the hip hop generation, Gen X, we were taught about Mesopotamia, or so much so Mansa Musa and the Moors and things of that nature, Marcus Garvey, you know what I'm saying? Significant emphasis on Malcolm, as much as the emphasis on Martin. Like, why do you think that? Like, do you think that your generation not really getting that, and the older ones within your generation not really getting that? Do you think that has something to do with that crab in the bucket mentality as well?
I think that it was already there, and we didn't get enough of positive reinforcement to help curve that. You know what I mean? I don't think that, I think it's deeper than that. I think it goes back, from the beginning of us, arriving on the shores over here. You know what I mean? I think it's deeply ingrained. I really do. I think it's not, really knowing, I'm still searching my roots. I'm still, struggling, trying to find out who my grandfather's grandfather is. I got some information, but, I say all that to say, who are we? You know what I mean? It's knowledge of self. And even with the hip hop era, I grew up with the hip hop era, and Africa Bambaataa, and
right.
I grew up with self-destruction,
right?
Self-destruction, and I listened to all that. But did I truly take it in when that wasn't truly what I saw at home or with my people, or did I nod my head and enjoy the beat?
Right.
You know what I mean? Yes, I learned some stuff, and I wore the Malcolm X, and I had the Africa jewel through that era, and but it made me feel good about myself. But did it teach me enough to feel good about myself long term enough that I want to really lift other folks up? You know what I mean? Like I don't see. I just don't see that. I came into the golf realm, I see myself as a leader. You know what I mean? My dad had a bumper sticker on his car when I was a kid that said, lead, follow, or get out of the way.
Right.
Now, it wasn't something that he always said, but it's how he lived.
Right.
It was like, lead, follow, or get out of the way. It was a bumper sticker. I'll never forget it. And I thought, I always liked that. So I always figured, I'm strong enough to lead, so I'm going to be a leader. I'm humble enough to follow, and I'm smart enough to know when I need to get out of the way, right?
So I'm sorry. Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna go into another whole point. So go ahead. You answer.
Well, I was going to, because we pressed for time, and you said something that really kind of leads me into my final question. I'm gonna wrap it up, because we could talk about this for
absolutely.
Especially the basis of what we believe that this mentality even comes from. So,
right.
So leave us with with that. You said Pops and bless him said you either lead, follow, or get out the way, right? How can one never become a crab?
I think we need a growth mindset. You know what I mean? I think we need a growth mindset where we believe we can all eat. Where if I win, you win. Right. You know what I mean? Because the people I see do it the best are those who really work together.
Right.
And I've seen companies who believe they've arrived, you know what I mean? Black companies, white companies, but let's talk about the black space. Let's talk about the black golf space real quick. I've been in the presence of businesses early on, 19 years ago, where it was a few handful of black-owned golf companies, very few. PGA Show, Orlando, Florida, thousands of people there and, 10 African Americans, maybe 20. And, excited to partner and work. And, these are folks who are doing well. Some of them had been on TV, in different shows, doing different things. Hey, let's get together, let's work, let's build this thing. Let's create a good old boy system or an old boy system where we can pull each other up. Everybody has an old boy system but us. Cultures have,
everybody have a cult but us.
Able to pull each other up, lift each other along. You know what I mean? When's the last time you've been to a Chinese restaurant, saw a black person working there? And my mentality was, this is it, meeting folks with like minds, want to do this, want to do that. And through that process, only a handful, wanted to work together and try to do some things. And almost everybody who did not, and I reached out to everybody, no longer exists. The business no longer exists. Gotcha. And who probably was the biggest supporter, and just DeBert Cook. She ran something at she ran a diversity pavilion. She's been at the forefront with the African American Golfers Digest. Just not but she's still there. She's still someone we can reach out to and call, and you know what I mean? Like, so folks, she's thriving. She's celebrating multiple years. So there are other folks, but it's very few. And everybody who is willing to do that kind of stuff, I see them succeed. But other folks, I mean, you think you're looking good, you're looking bad. Like we need each other, you know what I mean? And it's almost like my experience with folks are not just in this space, but in other spaces. Once I kind of feel like I have arrived a little bit, then I don't need to reach back. I don't need to pull you along. I don't need to really, I've arrived. But, that's the world's biggest okie doke for our culture. Because, next thing you know, you're out there by yourself. And when you could have had a team, a squad, an old boy system, a network of folks that, we could do so much as a network. But, alone, we can't compete in this world alone. But, if we just had 2%, as a squad, we would all be millionaires.
If we had 2%.
I know that's a lot, but
if we had
I'm just saying, like, look at the golf space. Look at the golf space, okay? You're a professional golfer. I have an apparel line. If Africa, we all wear the best, buy the best, play the best, go the best, do the best, spend thousands and thousands of dollars. I know I do on stuff. All of us, and there's thousands of us. If we come together, they're making billions of dollars in this industry. If we had 2-3% of that.
What do you mean?
If you know what I mean?
2-3%. What do you mean?
If the African American golf businesses, if those who have African American golf ventures, supported each other and just tapped into that multi-billion-dollar market and received some of those funds from some of the sponsors, from people who are spending this money and doing the things that they need to do. I mean, we count, like Jim Beattie says, we spend, we count, you know what I mean, with the African American Golf Expo and Forum. He's another one doing great work in this space. We spend, we count. You need to, don't throw us a bone, throw us $1 million. Let us do some true work in this space so we can diversify and make some things happen. You know what I mean?
It goes back into what Pop said about that ability to lead, choose wisely. during the right time, leading, following, or getting out of the way. And when you choose wisely, leaving those three as the focus, you can find yourself, instead of being a crab, actually uplifted. Powerful stuff, bruh. We're gonna chop it up some more. I got some other topics I really want to sit down and build with you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, this is virtual mentorship. So it's great, it's powerful. For all those of you that tuned in and took out the time to listen, we definitely appreciate you. Feel free to drop comments where they're applicable and continue on the conversation. Definitely subscribe, definitely like, love, and share this information, because what we're doing here is we're taking this opportunity to build a platform to where we can move forward. It's all about the build. We may have to destroy some things for sure, especially when it comes to the yeah, it's definitely about the build. You know what I'm saying? So appreciate everybody. Dr. Al, appreciate you, my good brother. And we're gonna link back up real soon and keep doing what we do. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. The Alphabet Chronicles.
Alphabet Chronicles, baby. We'll speak to y'all sooner than later. Take it easy.